Are you an NPC? I've talked about this a couple times on the channel before. People got, this can cause like fights sometimes, people talking about NPCs. But there's this neat new video done by Kurzgesagt, and it's called Are You an NPC? So we're going to take a look at that and see if it's a real thing even.
All right.
Are you free? Free to choose what you do and make decisions? Or are you an NPC, unable to decide anything for yourself? You feel that you have control over your life, or at least what you'll have for breakfast. But this may be an illusion. Physics actually may force you to go through life as if on rails, with no free will at all. You experience free will all the time, like when you decided to watch this video instead of doing something useful. Free will is your ability to decide by yourself what you do. It means that the future is an open arena that you can shape with your actions. It's at the core of human relationships. It means you are responsible for your actions, which is the basis of our moral and legal systems. There are too many dimensions for one short video: moral, psychological, biological, so we'll focus on the most essential part. Is free will even possible? Two main philosophical camps are fighting about this. No matter how we represent them, they'll be upset about it, so we'll use our own words. The first camp claims that the very idea of free will is fundamentally incompatible with the laws of the universe. You are an NPC. Whatever you exactly are, it's somehow made up of your physical brain and body. And these are made of cells, which are made of proteins, which are made of atoms and particles like protons or electrons. So fundamentally, you're a specific, quite lovely, dynamic pattern of particles. Particles have no will, no motivation, no freedom. They blindly follow the laws of physics. And we don't know why, but most laws of physics are deterministic, which means that things happen the way they do because of the things that came before. If you play pool and hit a ball at a specific speed and angle, the laws of physics tell you exactly how all the balls on the table will behave, their speeds, recoil directions, everything. These laws completely decide the behavior of all balls on the table. At the microscopic level, things work very much like that, only without players. Actions and reactions affect all the particles in the universe, creating a chain of causal effects that extends throughout time from the past to the future. Things happen, making other things happen. Now imagine that if right after the Big Bang, a super smart supercomputer looked at every single particle in the universe and noted all their properties. Just by applying the deterministic laws of physics, it should be able to predict what all the particles in existence would be doing until the end of time. But if you're made of particles and it's technically possible to calculate what particles will do forever, then you never decided anything. Your past, present, and future were already predetermined and decided at the Big Bang.
It's actually a great video, but doesn't science sometimes like dull down things and make it kind of like, I don't know, I find on the sciencey side of things, I know some people really enjoy it. For me, it kind of gets boring sometimes when it gets all sciencey. But it's a great topic because when it comes to like spirituality and religions and stuff like that, free will is always a big question. There are certain faiths that they have like divisions within their faith, the camps that are like, well, we do have free will and we don't, even though they're the same religion. I know definitely in Christianity, you've got the free willers and the non-free will people. And it's a tough one. My suspicion when it comes to free will is that it's somehow paradoxical. That it's like both happening at the same time. Like, yeah, you don't have any choice, and people are like, what? How can that be? How can that be? And it might just be because we just don't have all the information. Right? I don't know. What do you think?
Ish, Billy, Oten, Doten, Bebop, Paluten, Dutton, Eeny, Meeny, Macaracare, Tom Tush.
Okay, that's some insightful stuff.
The point I'm making is I just say a bunch of gibberish, and that's how about I look at my hands? Somebody who's an NPC wouldn't look at their hands, and somebody out there might be going, what? No, speaking gibberish doesn't mean that you're not an NPC.
Yeah.
But then you're an NPC by doing that, but your knee-jerk reaction is judgment. That's NPC behavior. I don't think that there's a gesture or a thing you could do, stop and be like, okay, am I here or am I not here?
Yeah.
You know, it still wouldn't prove that you're not pre-programmed to do that. That's still software going, you know, ask yourself some questions. I am kind of in the camp of, if you're at the point where you're stopping and asking yourself whether or not you have any free will, congratulations. That's like, you've gotten to that point where the software is doing that, is like defragging the system or whatever, is at the point where it's like self-reflecting.
Yeah.
But it's still in a chain of events that led to that.
Yep.
And whatever happens next, whatever conclusion you arrive at, I don't get this like romance with free will. People being like, no, I am me. At my biggest core, I'm me and I decide. I'm like,
well, it's a sense for control. They feel like, well, then I don't have any control over anything that I do if I don't have a free will.
Well, I think the fear is that responsibility becomes an issue. It's like, well, how do you take responsibility for anything?
How can you put anyone in prison then? They didn't have a choice.
Right. And at times I kind of do go, well, just like you shouldn't probably guilt yourself too hard, you shouldn't reward yourself too hard because you didn't choose to have all the benefits that led you to... You didn't choose to have the genetics.
I like the way you said that.
You didn't choose to have the genetics. You didn't choose to have the mindset. You didn't choose to have the anything. And they'll be like, I did choose my mindset. And I'm like, I straight up disagree. The thing that you were talking about in terms of boringness, I'm with you. That's like, I felt like saying, this is too smart for me. But I realize that a lot of times when I can't pay attention to something, it's because I don't believe it's pertinent enough to the larger picture for myself. But it's in a nutshell, it's too smart for me. It's too boring the way they're describing it.
All right. Well, anyway, we'll let you guys decide on this. We'll keep it going.
That would mean there is a kind of fate, and you are not free to decide anything. You may feel like you make decisions, but you're actually on autopilot. The motions of the particles that make up your brain cells that made you watch this video were decided 14 billion years ago. You're just in the room when it happens. You're only witnessing how the universe inside you unfolds in real time. But this can't be true because of quantum mechanics, right? Quantum processes are intrinsically random, not deterministic, and can't be predicted with total certainty. On the quantum pool table, balls can go randomly left or up or banana. Their behavior isn't set by what came before, but randomly decided in real time. But for the no free will camp, this doesn't affect their argument. They think that since quantum processes are random, they don't allow you to make any decisions. Because if there's randomness for the things that fundamentally make up your brain and body, these random processes make the decisions for you. How? Say an electron can randomly go right or left. If it goes left, it triggers electric currents between your neurons that create a neuronal process which triggers a long chain of actions that make you watch a YouTube video. Or it goes right and makes you clean your room. Just because the chain is extremely complex doesn't mean you have any control over it. So maybe your fate was not decided at the Big Bang, but it is decided at this very moment. The important part is that it's not decided by you. You get no say in this. You have no free will. Wow. This is kind of a bummer because the argument fundamentally seems to make sense. Except, no, screams the free will side. This is a really bad way to think about the universe. You are the main character. We know that we can reduce everything that exists to its basic particles and the laws that guide them. While this makes physics feel like the only scientific discipline that actually matters, there's a problem. You can't explain everything in our universe.
I like your answer of saying, what if it's both? I like that because I feel like going, don't limit my choices here.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And by the way, earlier when I was talking about responsibility, it doesn't mean that like responsibility doesn't exist. I'm saying even though responsibility exists, I would still see the side that would argue that even with responsibility existing, you're still subject to like the society you grew up in, and you know, like you can't just. It's like fine, you break the law, but you will go to jail or do this bad thing, and you'll have a guilty conscience. Like there's still cause and effect, even though the way you arrive at conclusions, it's to prevent you from judging someone too hard. If you see someone that's like doing something you don't understand, it's like their life story is way different than yours.
Yeah.
You know, and if we realize that everything's more of a process that was kind of out of all of our hands, how would that affect how we govern ourselves and what we do going forward in society? But I just also don't like the idea of limits in any sense. So the idea of going, well, maybe it's both. It's like, sure, you know, I don't feel so much like it's free will, but just in case it is free will, I don't want to cut that branch off.
Well, yeah. Who knows? And I'm trying to figure out like how it gets to the point of free will, and like I run through like scenarios in my brain, and maybe it has something to do with kind of like the evolutionary process. Now we're getting to really spiritual, wacky, metaphysical stuff. But like, if there's like an evolution to the soul, and we are like starting to understand ourselves, maybe there's a point of understanding where like you see a perspective beyond the capacity that you have now, that like it leads to like the ultimate power, the ultimate.
Gotta be, but it's interesting because it's like, are we still talking about gray matter?
Yeah.
Are we still talking about a processing brain? What do you mean perceives?
Yeah.
Our eyes are what see things.
Like I'm talking about transcending humanity, like transcending everything, like getting to a point of like.
Here's a question: Did God act in free will when He decided to create the universe, or was He in process?
Yeah.
Was He lonely so long that He was like, I think I'm going to choose to make the universe. Did He even choose?
Yeah.
Or is all of this? But like you said, you know, then you can always go to that higher perspective where it's like you don't even, you know, if you knew what choice really was, I'd have to tear out your tongue to
communicate it.
You know, we'd have to do something crazy to communicate it.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. Rambling. Let's get back to the video.
Only in terms of particles. One key fact about reality that we can't explain by looking just at electrons and quantum stuff is emergence. Emergence is when many small things together create new fundamental traits that didn't exist before. A drop of water is just a sextillion H2O molecules. If you get water on your pants, they get wet. But what is wetness? H2O molecules are not wet, but your pants are definitely wet now. Many small things together just created something new that doesn't exist at the level of the individual molecules. Emergence occurs at all levels of reality, and reality seems to be organized in layers: atoms, molecules, cells, tissues, organs, you, society. Put many things in one layer together and they'll create the next layer up. Every time they do, entirely new properties emerge. One atom can't handle information, but many of them together can form a DNA molecule. Molecules are not alive, but many of them can form a cell, and cells are alive. With each jump up the complexity ladder, the rules of what's possible change. Completely new things emerge that are much more than the sum of their parts. And here, the reductionist view of the universe breaks down. The layers of reality need each other to make sense. You can explain living things with cells, cells with molecules, and molecules with atoms. But because of emergence, you can't start with quantum particles and reconstruct the universe. You can't explain galaxies with quantum mechanics or human psychology with quarks. This is not the whole story. Reality is not just structured in layers, but for some reason, the layers are also largely independent of each other. Things existing within the same layer can influence each other and maybe a layer up or down. But often they don't seem to influence things much higher up or down. To figure out how your organs work, you don't need quarks. To understand politics, you don't need to know about cells. If you want to explain things happening on one layer, you can only do that by staying close to that layer. No, screams the no free will camp in frustration. You can't just use magic to explain free will. But the emergence argument doesn't invoke magic. It just says that thinking about free will in terms of determinism and fundamental laws is a dead end. A kind of category error, like trying to explain galaxies by looking at your digestive tract. It's part of a reductionist school of thinking about the universe that very successfully shaped science for a long time, but that's challenged by emergence. So maybe trying to understand free will by looking at fundamental particles, deterministic laws, and quantum mechanics misses the point. The question we should be asking is, which layer of reality is relevant to free will? Well, just like no individual molecule creates wetness, not a single cell in your brain wants to watch YouTube. But one layer up, your brain, made of 80 billion interconnected neurons, does. On this layer, all the things relevant to you emerge: your consciousness, character, feelings, your fears and dreams. This is where you emerge. We don't know why and how, but we know that you're here right now. How all the things going on in your brain play off each other to make you who you are is a whole different can of worms. But on this layer of reality, you are part of the decision process. Because at this level, you are just one more physical cause of whatever happens in your brain. You are shaped by your decisions, and your decisions are shaped by you. You have a say about this layer of reality. You are not just witnessing how the universe inside you unfolds, you're actually taking part in it. And you're free to do so however you see fit. At least this is how some on the free will side see it. Conclusion and opinion. So, who's right? Is there free will? We don't know. If you ask us personally, we think the argument for free will is more appealing because it brings the complexity of the universe to the table. Maybe existence is just the sum of its parts, but at least for now, it seems the universe is not that simple. But even if we don't have free will, it's not clear what that changes for practical purposes. You and us, we humans, on a purely subjective basis, feel like we have free will and that your decisions are yours to make. As long as we're not sure either way, and if it feels like you're making decisions, what does it matter if a non-existent supercomputer could have calculated the future at the Big Bang? Or if quantum stuff all the way down randomly nudges your cells one way or the other? Free will that feels free is good enough for us. In any case, now you can decide what to do next. Maybe get some stuff done. Or watch more of our videos. It's your decision. Probably.
Yeah, that is a good point at the end there, because it does feel like the choices that you do make are your choices.
You win.
No,
you win.
No, I don't think it's a win.
No, but
they even said we don't know, but I think they were taking the side of free will.
Right.
But they were saying essentially we don't know.
I'm just pointing out that just think something about me. My brain latched onto that you know, the egos need to feel like to say at the end of the day before it's going to sleep, I won, I win this day, I won this day, or we won. You know,
yeah.
You know, we won this day, we won this day, right, everyone? Yeah. I'm good for saying we instead of me.
I'm curious. It seems like
endless ego games.
It's why do you think they chose the title "Are you an NPC"? Because they probably should have just called "Free Will versus Non-Free Will."
I think it was just clever.
It gets everyone clicking.
Yeah, because that's a term that people use.
Yeah, because usually, like within the NPC argument, I think people I think there's an uncomfortableness with like, who are we labeling NPCs and not NPCs, and then like, you know, what are we doing with them, and that can like go down some scary roads. Like, well, let's get rid of all the NPCs. Well, all us people who are, you know, so aware and in control and have free will, you know, we can control this environment, right? So I think there's a danger with the NPC argument of isolating groups of people.
How relevant is it? Are you the smartest person in the room or not? No, like mic drop. Let's just think about that. Oh, I gotta like sit there and think about that for a sec. Are you the smartest person in the room or not? And do you have the capacity to recognize whether you are or not? Yeah. Because if you're the smartest person in the room, you probably, you know, how are you using that to see where everything is? Yeah. You know, some people are probably screaming, that's not relevant. It's not relevant. You can be the dumbest person and be president. We know that. We know that already. That's not the damn point. The damn point is it's irrelevant, all this free will stuff, because are you comfortable sitting back and letting barbarians take the castle, or are you going to do something about it? Everybody has a place. If you're the one that's calling the shots, have you ever been a boss before? You know, don't answer that. But the point is, sometimes you got to delegate. You're like, you would be best suited here. It doesn't mean they're useless, but some people are well suited to different roles. Yeah. When you see somebody, you don't judge it. I never understood bosses that came on a site and would get angry at somebody for doing something wrong. I'm like, you need people to not be masters so that you can be the master. Yeah. You idiot. You know, you depend on ineffective people.
It's like the reverse happens too when employees bicker about like the person ahead of you having too many liberties, or like, I don't like how that person gets to do all. I'm like, so you're saying that you want nowhere to go. You're essentially saying there's nowhere to like go up the ladder. if you want him to be doing your task. You're literally complaining about him.
Right.
You know.
But I take back that harsh idiot thing. I've even done the thing I just judged. I've done it before, but there's just a war inside me. Essentially resolving in, I don't think you should be sitting there and trying to figure out who's the NPC and who's not the NPC.
Yeah.
People are at different levels of awareness, but like, why would you resort to judgment rather than clever analysis? Like, okay, this person's limited in this sense. You don't know everything. Yeah. Maybe they're putting on an act of being limited and they're really out, you know, just face reality with your eyes wide open. I've said that before, and I mean it to this point. Try to be as aware as you can and avoid things that make you sleepy time. You know, even though sometimes we all need a good sleepy time. This is too much for me. I'm unplugging. I'm going to actively be an NPC
What
today.
do you call that? What is it when you need sleepy time? What do we call that around here? A sleeping man.
A sleeping mint.
You need a
right.
sleeping
Verily I say unto you, become a sleeping.
All right. Well, hopefully you guys liked our reaction on this one. Great video by Kurzgesagt. Go check out their website. They got awesome videos. And if you liked our reaction, don't forget to hit the like, subscribe, share this with a friend, and everyone until next time,
Stay spiritual.